When Emily Carter's hands started trembling while checking her patient's vital signs, it wasn't because she was a bad nurse. It was because she had just recognized the unconscious man on the hospital bed as the person who destroyed her entire teenage years. Marcus Webb, the boy who made her life a living hell 15 years ago, was now lying helpless in front of her, and she was the only one who could save him. The IV line was in her hands. The morphine dosage was her decision. And nobody would ever know if she made a mistake. But what she chose to do in the next 60 seconds would either haunt her forever or set her free. The clipboard slipped from Emily's fingers and clattered against the sterile hospital floor. The sound echoed through the emergency room at Memorial Hospital like a gunshot. Two nearby nurses looked up from their stations, concern flashing across their faces. But Emily didn't notice. Her eyes were locked on the man's face lying in bed number 7. That face. Even after 15 years, even covered in bruises and blood from the car accident, she would recognize that face anywhere. Marcus Webb. The name on the patient chart seemed to burn into her vision, each letter a painful reminder of years she'd spent trying to forget. Emily's breathing became shallow. The fluorescent lights above suddenly felt too bright, the antiseptic smell too strong. Her 27-year-old professional composure, built carefully over years of medical training and therapy, began cracking like thin ice under heavy weight. "Emily, you okay?" Sarah Chen, her colleague and the closest thing she had to a best friend at the hospital, touched her shoulder gently. Sarah's voice seemed to come from underwater, distant and muffled. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Emily couldn't respond immediately. Her throat had closed up tight. The busy sounds of the emergency room, beeping monitors, hushed conversations, squeaking wheels of medical carts, faded into a dull, overwhelming roar. She was no longer standing in Memorial Hospital on a Tuesday evening. She was back in the hallway of Lincoln High School, 15 years old again, clutching her books to her chest, trying desperately to make herself invisible as she walked past Marcus and his cruel friends. "Sarah, Emily's voice came out as barely a whisper. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to focus on the present. "I need a minute. Just give me a minute." "A minute?" Sarah's eyebrows rose with concern, but also urgency. "Emily, he's critical. Severe car accident, multiple injuries, possible internal bleeding, fractured ribs. Dr. Morrison is still in surgery with that cardiac patient, and Dr. Patel is dealing with the bus crash victims in Trauma Bay too. You're the senior trauma nurse on duty right now. This patient needs immediate attention or we're going to lose him." Needs me. The bitter irony of those two words made something twist painfully in Emily's chest. Marcus Webb had never needed her before. He certainly never cared about what she needed. Not when he tripped her in the cafeteria during lunch, sending her tray flying across the floor while everyone laughed. Not when he started that horrible chant, Fat Emily," that spread through the entire school like wildfire. Not when he pushed her down the stairs outside the gym, causing her to break her wrist and miss the regional science competition she'd worked months to prepare for. And definitely not when he stood by laughing while his girlfriend Christina Morgan cut off chunks of Emily's hair in the bathroom, filming it on her phone and posting it online for the whole school to mock. That video had gone viral locally. The humiliation had been so complete, so crushing, that Emily had stayed home from school for 2 weeks, unable to face anyone. "Emily." Sarah's voice became firmer, snapping her back to the present moment. "I know something's wrong, but this man is dying. Whatever's going on, you need to push it aside right now. That's what we do. That's why we're nurses." Emily's training kicked in automatically, years of discipline overriding the chaos of emotions. She bent down, picked up the clipboard with hands that still trembled slightly,
and took a deep breath. Zara was right. This was what they did. They saved lives. No matter whose life it was, no matter what history existed between them. That was the oath she had taken. Every life has equal value in these rooms. Every patient deserves the same level of care. But as Emily stepped closer to Marcus Webb's bedside, as she looked down on his unconscious face, older now, more mature, but still unmistakably him, a dark thought whispered through her mind, like poisonous smoke. Nobody would know. The thought appeared so suddenly, so clearly, that it startled her. Nobody would know if she was just a little too slow, if she miscalculated a dosage, if she missed a critical sign. Car accident patients are complicated. Things go wrong all the time despite everyone's best efforts. Who would question it? Who would even think twice? Emily's hands hovered over the IV line. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain everyone in the emergency room could hear it. This man had destroyed her. He'd taken a shy, sensitive 15-year-old girl and systematically broken her down until she couldn't look at herself in a mirror without hearing his cruel voice in her head. He'd made her hate herself so much that one night she'd stood on the edge of a bridge, seriously considering whether the world would be better off without her in it. Only a phone call from her mother, randomly timed, had saved her that night. Marcus Webb had moved on with his perfect life. He'd probably never thought about Emily Mitchell again. Bullies rarely remembered their victims. They inflicted permanent damage and then forgot, moving forward without consequences, without guilt, without understanding the lives they'd destroyed. And now, he was here. Helpless, vulnerable, completely dependent on the girl he tortured. The universe had placed him directly in her hands. What would she do?
Emily stood frozen at Marcus's bedside, her professional training warring with 15 years of suppressed pain. To understand why this moment felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, you needed to understand what Marcus Webb had done to Emily Mitchell when they were teenagers. You needed to understand how one person can systematically destroy another person's sense of self-worth piece by piece, day after day, until there's almost nothing left. It started on the first day of sophomore year at Lincoln High School. Emily had walked into her new classroom 15 minutes early, as was her habit. She liked being early, liked having time to organize her materials, to settle in before the chaos of other students arrived. She'd chosen a seat near the middle, not too far forward where she'd seem like a teacher's pet, not too far back where she couldn't see the board clearly. She was arranging her pencils and notebooks when Marcus Webb walked in. He was already popular by then, a junior who'd made varsity football as a sophomore, with the kind of easy confidence that came from never having to worry about whether people liked him. They always did. He had that quality some people possess, a magnetic charm that made others want to be near him, want to please him, want to be included in his circle. Emily hadn't known she was sitting in his seat. She didn't know that Marcus and his friends had claimed that entire row last year and considered it their territory. She didn't know that by innocently sitting there, she was violating an unspoken rule. "Hey," Marcus had said, not unkindly at first, "you're in my seat." Emily had looked up, confused. "There's no assigned seating yet. The teacher hasn't—" "I'm assigning it," Marcus interrupted, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "That's my seat. Move." The old Emily, the one who still had confidence, might have stood her ground.
might have politely said she was there first, that he could sit anywhere else. But Emily had just transferred from another school where she'd been bullied for being overweight. She'd spent the summer before sophomore year losing 30 pounds, hoping desperately that this new school would be different. She didn't want trouble. She just wanted to be invisible. So she'd moved. Marcus had laughed as she gathered her things. Good girl, quick learner. His friends had laughed too. And that should have been the end of it. One small moment quickly forgotten. But Marcus Webb had seen something in Emily's quick compliance. He'd sensed weakness the way predators sense vulnerability. And he'd decided, consciously or unconsciously, that she would be his target. The next day, he'd accidentally knocked her books out of her hands in the hallway. The day after that, he'd made a loud comment about her weight as she walked past his lunch table, even though she was no longer overweight. "Hey, guys, check it out. Fat Emily's coming. Better hide your food." The nickname stuck immediately. Within a week, people she'd never even spoken to were calling her Fat Emily. Within 2 weeks, someone had created a fake social media account under that name and started posting cruel memes. Emily reported it. The account was taken down. 3 more popped up to replace it. Marcus made it his personal mission to ensure Emily never had a moment of peace at Lincoln High School. He was clever about it, too. He never did anything severe enough to get seriously punished. He never hit her, never threatened her directly. He just created an atmosphere of constant, low-level torture that made every single day feel like walking through a minefield. He would trip her in the hallways, then apologize loudly while his friends snickered. He would ask her to dances as a joke, record her confused responses, and share them with everyone. He'd wait until she answered a question correctly in class, then make loud retching sounds as if her voice physically disgusted him. The teachers noticed some of it. A few tried to intervene, but Marcus was the star quarterback. His father donated generously to the school, and besides, it all seemed so minor when you looked at any single incident. A tripped student here, a rude comment there. Boys will be boys. Teenagers can be cruel. She should learn to toughen up. Nobody saw the cumulative effect. Nobody understood how each small cruelty added to the ones before, building into something that crushed Emily's spirit completely. By the end of sophomore year, she'd stopped raising her hand in class. She'd stopped eating in the cafeteria. She'd stopped making eye contact with anyone. And Marcus kept going, kept pushing, kept finding new ways to remind her that she was worthless, that she didn't belong, that everyone agreed with him about how pathetic she was. The haircutting incident in the bathroom had been the final straw. After that video went viral, Emily's mother had found her in the bathtub one night, fully clothed, sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. "I can't do this anymore, Mom. I can't. Please don't make me go back there. Please." Her mother had withdrawn her from Lincoln High the next day. They'd moved to a different district. Emily had spent 6 months in intensive therapy before she could even think about returning to school. She'd lost over a year of her education. She'd lost her confidence, her joy, her sense of safety in the world. And Marcus Webb had graduated, gone to college, and probably never thought about Emily Mitchell again. Until now. Now he was lying unconscious in front of her, and his life literally in her hands. And Emily had to decide who she was. Was she the broken 15-year-old girl whose life he'd destroyed? Or was she the woman she'd fought so hard to become? The trauma nurse who'd dedicated her life to saving others, who'd sworn an oath to do no harm. Sarah was watching her carefully. "Emily, his blood pressure's dropping. We need to move now." Emily looked down at Marcus's face. His eyes were closed, peaceful. He had no idea who was standing over him. No idea that the girl he tortured, the girl whose suffering had meant nothing to him, now held his life in her hands. What would you do?
Emily's hands stopped trembling. It happened suddenly, like a switch flipping inside her. She looked at Marcus Webb's pale face, at the monitors showing his vital signs growing more unstable by the second, and something crystallized in her mind. This wasn't about him anymore. This was about her, about who she chose to be in this moment. "Sarah, get me 2 units of O-negative blood stat." Emily's voice came out steady and professional. The trauma nurse in her had taken control, pushing everything else aside. "His pressure's dropping too fast. He's bleeding internally. We need to stabilize him before we could even think about getting him to surgery." Sarah nodded and rushed off. Emily moved to Marcus's bedside, her movements efficient and practiced. She'd done this hundreds of times. Trauma patients came through these doors every week. Car accidents, workplace injuries, violent crimes. She'd saved so many lives. This would be just another one. Except it wasn't. Emily's fingers worked quickly, checking the IV line, adjusting the flow rate, monitoring his oxygen saturation. Marcus's face was covered in cuts from the shattered windshield. His right arm was bent at an unnatural angle, definitely broken. But the real danger was internal. His abdomen was rigid and distended. Internal bleeding, probably from a ruptured spleen or liver damage. "Talk to me, Emily." Dr. James Rodriguez appeared beside her. He was one of the younger attending physicians, but Emily trusted his judgment. "What do we have?" "Male, approximately 40 years old, car accident victim," Emily reported, her voice clinical and detached. She didn't say his name, couldn't say his name. "Significant facial lacerations, fractured right radius and ulna, suspected internal bleeding in the abdominal cavity. BP is 70/40 and dropping, pulse is 130 and thready. He's compensating, but he won't be able to much longer." Dr. Rodriguez moved to the other side of the bed, his hands already assessing the patient. "Fast exam shows free fluid in the abdomen, definitely bleeding. We need to get him to OR immediately, but he'll never survive transport in this condition. We need to buy him some time." "Massive transfusion protocol?" Emily suggested. "Yes, and let's get the Belmont Rapid Infuser set up. Sarah, we need the OR team down here now. Tell them we're coming up with a hot one, but we need to stabilize first." Emily worked alongside the doctor, her hands moving with practiced precision. She inserted a larger IV line, connected the rapid infuser, started pushing fluids and blood products. With each action, she felt herself splitting into 2 people. There was Nurse Emily Carter doing her job, saving a life, and the other Emily, the one who's screaming inside, the one who couldn't believe she was fighting so hard to save the man who'd almost destroyed her. Marcus's blood pressure started rising slightly, 100/60. Not good, but better than it had been. His pulse slowed to 110. They were buying him time, keeping him alive long enough to get him to surgery. "Good work, Emily," Dr. Rodriguez said, his eyes on the monitors. "You might just have saved his life with that quick response." Emily didn't respond. She couldn't, because at that moment Marcus's eyes fluttered open, just for a second. His gaze was unfocused, confused, in pain. He looked directly at Emily, though she doubted he was actually seeing her. His lips moved, forming words that barely came out as a whisper. "Help me." 2 words, simple, desperate, the same words Emily had whispered silently to herself hundreds of times in high school, begging for someone, anyone to help her, to save her from Marcus Webb's cruelty. But nobody had. Nobody had intervened. Nobody had saved her. She'd had to save herself. And now Marcus Webb was asking for the help she'd once needed so desperately, the help that never came. The irony was so complete, so perfect, that Emily almost laughed. Almost. But she didn't laugh. Instead, she leaned closer to him, close enough that only he could hear her words, if he could hear anything at all in his semi-conscious state. "I've got you," she whispered. "You're going to be okay." She didn't say it for him. She said it for herself, for the 15-year-old girl who'd stood on that bridge, who'd felt so alone and worthless that death seemed like the only escape. She said it for every person who'd ever been bullied, broken, destroyed by someone else's cruelty. She said it because choosing to save him wasn't about him deserving to be saved. It was about her refusing to become what he'd been, someone who could look at another human being's suffering and choose to do nothing. Marcus's eyes closed again. The OR team arrived with a gurney. Dr. Rodriguez gave rapid-fire instructions. They were lifting Marcus, moving him, preparing for transport to surgery. Emily stepped back, her role in his care temporarily complete. Sarah touched her arm gently. "You okay?" Sarah asked quietly. "You look like you knew him for a second there." She watched them wheel Marcus away toward the elevators, toward the operating rooms where a surgical team would spend hours trying to repair the damage from his accident, trying to give him a second chance at life. "I did know him. A long time ago. He was a very different person then. And now? Now he's just another patient." But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. Marcus Webb would never be just another patient. He would always be the boy who'd tried to destroy her, and she would always be the woman who'd chosen to save him anyway. "Emily Carter to the Noosa station. Emily Carter, you have a phone call." Emily walked toward the station, her legs feeling strangely weak now that the adrenaline had faded. She picked up the phone, expecting it to be her supervisor with questions about another patient. "This is Emily Carter." "Miss Carter, this is Detective Morrison from the Metro Police Department. I'm investigating the accident involving Marcus Webb. I understand you were one of the first responders to treat him." "Yes, that's correct. I need to ask you some questions about his condition, but also about the accident itself, because according to witnesses, this wasn't an accident at all. Someone deliberately ran Marcus Webb off the road. Someone tried to kill him." Emily's hand tightened on the phone. The emergency room suddenly felt very cold.
Detective Sarah Morrison arrived at Memorial Hospital 30 minutes later. She was a woman in her mid-40s with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything they saw. Emily met her in a small consultation room off the main emergency department, a space usually reserved for delivering bad news to families. "Thank you for speaking with me, Miss Carter." Detective Morrison pulled out a small notebook. "I understand this has been a difficult evening." "It's part of the job," Emily said carefully. She still felt shaken, though not for the reasons the detective might assume. "What can I tell you about Mr. Webb's condition?" "Actually, I'm more interested in his condition before the accident." The detective's eyes were steady on Emily's face. "You see, we have 3 witnesses who saw another vehicle, a dark blue sedan, deliberately sideswipe Mr. Webb's car on the interstate, forcing him into the median barrier. This wasn't an accident. Someone wanted Marcus Webb dead." Emily felt her stomach drop. "I don't understand what that has to do with me." "Maybe nothing, maybe everything." Detective Morrison flipped through her notes. "You see, when we ran a background check on Marcus Webb, we found something interesting. Several complaints filed against him over the years. Harassment allegations from high school that were never fully investigated. A restraining order from a former girlfriend in college. Multiple reports from coworkers about bullying behavior that resulted in 2 lawsuits his company quietly settled." Emily's mouth dried. She hadn't known about any of that. She thought she was Marcus's only victim, or at least his main one. But apparently his cruelty hadn't stopped after high school. He'd continued the same pattern throughout his life. Marcus Webb made a lot of enemies. And here's where it gets interesting. We pulled security footage from the hospital parking garage. There's a dark blue sedan parked in Section C. Want to guess who it's registered to? Emily's heart started pounding. "I have no idea." "Christina Morgan." "Does that name mean anything to you?" Christina Morgan. Marcus, his girlfriend from high school.
The one who'd cut Emily's hair while Marcus filmed it. The one who'd been just as cruel, just as vicious. Emily hadn't thought about Christina in years. She'd assumed, like Marcus, that Christina had moved on with her life, leaving her victims behind. "I knew her in high school," Emily admitted. "We weren't friends." "That's an understatement, according to what we found." Detective Morrison's expression softened slightly. "Miss Carter, I've read the police reports from 15 years ago. The cyberbullying, the assault, the harassment. Your name appears in multiple incident reports related to Marcus Webb and Christina Morgan." Emily felt exposed, like someone had ripped open an old wound. "That was a long time ago. I was a different person." "Were you? Or did you just learn to hide the pain better?" The detective's voice wasn't unkind. "Because here's what I'm trying to figure out. Marcus Webb is rushed to the hospital after someone deliberately tries to murder him. And by pure coincidence, he ends up in the care of someone he tormented for years. Someone who had every reason to want him dead. "I saved his life," Emily said firmly. "Ask Dr. Rodriguez, ask any of the nurses. I did everything possible to keep Marcus Webb alive." "I know you did. That's what makes this so interesting." "Because Christina Morgan also worked as a nurse, did you know that? Different hospital, but she was still in the medical field. And she definitely knew where Marcus would be taken after the accident. Memorial Hospital has the only level 1 trauma center in this part of the city." Emily's mind raced. "You think Christina tried to kill Marcus? Why?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out. But I do know this. Whatever Marcus Webb did to you 15 years ago, he did something even worse to Christina Morgan. 6 months ago, she filed assault charges against him, said he'd been stalking her, harassing her, trying to ruin her life, just like he did to you back in high school. The charges were dropped due to lack of evidence, but Christina told the investigating officer that Marcus Webb had destroyed her life once and she wouldn't let him do it again. You think she ran him off the road? I think someone did, and I think that someone might be in this hospital right now waiting to finish what they started." Detective Morrison stood up. "I need you to be careful, Miss Carter, and I need you to tell me if you notice anything unusual, anyone asking about Marcus Webb's condition, anyone who shouldn't be here." After the detective left, Emily sat alone in the consultation room for a long time. Her hands were shaking again, but for entirely different reasons now. Someone had tried to murder Marcus Webb, and that someone might be Christina Morgan, another victim of his cruelty who'd reached her breaking point. Emily understood that feeling. She understood it all too well, because there had been moments over the years, dark moments in the middle of sleepless nights, when she'd fantasized about what she'd do if she ever saw Marcus Webb again, the things she'd say, the ways she'd make him understand what he'd done to her. But she'd never imagined actually hurting him, never imagined revenge extending beyond words. Had Christina crossed that line? Had Marcus's continued harassment pushed her to attempted murder? Emily's pager beeped. She glanced down at it, a message from the surgical floor. Marcus was out of surgery, stable. He'd survived. And according to hospital policy, since Emily had been his admitting nurse, she'd be assigned to his post-operative care team, which meant she'd be seeing Marcus Webb again very soon. This time when he was awake, conscious, aware, and she'd have to look him in the eyes and pretend that 15 years meant nothing. Emily stood outside room 412 for a full minute before she could force herself to push open the door. Through the small window, she could see Marcus lying in the hospital bed, awake now, staring at the ceiling. Monitors beeped steadily around him. An IV line snaked into his left arm. His right arm was casted from wrist to shoulder. He looked smaller somehow, vulnerable, nothing like the towering figure of cruelty that lived in Emily's memories. She took a deep breath, put on her professional mask, and entered the room. "Good afternoon, Mr. Webb. I'm Emily Carter, one of the nurses assigned to your post-operative care. How are you feeling?" Marcus turned his head slowly to look at her. His eyes were slightly unfocused from the pain medication, but alert enough. He studied her face for a moment, and Emily felt her heart hammering in her chest. Would he recognize her? Did he even remember what she looked like? "Like I got hit by a truck, or in this case, like someone deliberately ran me off the road. That's what the police told me anyway." "You're very lucky to be alive." Emily moved to check his vitals, grateful for the excuse to avoid direct eye contact. "You had a ruptured spleen, fractured ribs, and significant internal bleeding. The surgical team had to remove your spleen entirely." "So, live?" "Yes. With proper care and rest, you should make a full recovery." Emily typed notes into the computer terminal. "You'll need to stay in the hospital for at least a week, then several more weeks of recovery at home." "Great. Just great." Marcus closed his eyes, as if my life wasn't already falling apart. Emily wanted to walk away. She'd done her job, checked his vitals, confirmed his pain medication schedule, made sure he understood his condition. She could leave now, let another nurse handle his care, but something made her pause. "Is there someone we should call for you? Family? Friends?" "No." The word came out flat. "My wife left me 3 months ago. My kids won't talk to me. My parents... Let's just say I've burned a lot of bridges." There was something in his voice. Not quite regret, but maybe the beginning of awareness. Emily had seen this before in patients, especially those who'd had near-death experiences. The realization that their lives hadn't turned out the way they'd planned. That maybe they'd made choices that led them to lying alone in a hospital bed with no one to call. "I'm sorry to hear that," Emily said, and was surprised to find she meant it. At least partially. "Are you?" Marcus opened his eyes again, looking directly at her. "You don't know me. Why would you care?" This was it, the moment when she could tell him. When she could say, "Actually, I do know you, Marcus. You made my teenage years a living hell. You destroyed my confidence so completely that I almost killed myself. You're the reason I spent years in therapy learning to function again. Remember me now?" But Emily didn't say any of that. Instead, she said simply, "Because everyone deserves to have someone who cares, no matter what they've done." Something flickered across Marcus's face. Confusion, maybe, or perhaps suspicion. "You're either the nicest person I've ever met, or you're hiding something." "Maybe both." Emily allowed herself a small smile. "Try to get some rest, Mr. Webb. I'll check on you again in a few hours." She turned to leave, but Marcus's voice stopped her. "Wait, Thank you. The doctor said you saved my life in the ER. That if you hadn't acted as quickly as you did, I wouldn't have made it to surgery." He paused, swallowing with difficulty. "So, thank you. Really." Emily looked back at him, this broken man in the hospital bed, thanking her for saving his life. The same man who'd once made her life not worth living. The irony was so complete it almost hurt. "You're welcome," she said quietly. "It's what I do." As she left the room, Emily felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness. She wasn't there yet, maybe would never be there, but something else. A recognition that Marcus Webb at 40 wasn't the same person he'd been at 17. That maybe, just maybe, people could change. Or maybe I was just fooling myself. Maybe a bully was always a bully, just with better manners when they needed something from you. She didn't have time to dwell on it. Sarah was waiting for her at the nurse's station, her face troubled. "Emily, there's someone here to see Marcus Webb. A woman. She says she's an old friend, but Detective Morrison called and told us to alert her immediately if anyone came asking about him." "Who is it?" "She said her name is Christina Morgan." Emily's blood ran cold.
Christina Morgan stood in the hospital waiting area, and Emily would have recognized her anywhere. 15 years had changed her. Her hair was shorter now, styled professionally, and her face had hardened in ways that had nothing to do with age. But it was definitely Christina, the same woman who'd laughed while cutting Emily's hair, the same woman who'd stood by Marcus's side through every cruel act. "I need to see Marcus Webb," Christina was saying to Sarah. "I'm an old friend. I heard about the accident. I'm sorry, but Mr. Webb isn't receiving visitors at the moment. He's in still post-operative recovery. I just need 5 minutes. Please, it's important." Emily made a decision. She stepped forward. "Christina?" Christina turned, and for a moment, genuine surprise crossed her face, then recognition, then something else, calculation, maybe, or wariness. "Emily Mitchell? Oh my God, you work here?" "Emily Carter, now. I took my stepfather's name after high school. And yes, I'm one of the nurses here." Wow, that's really something. "So you've seen Marcus. How is he?" "Why do you want to know?" Emily kept her voice neutral, professional, but her hand moved subtly to her pocket where her phone was. One tap would alert security and Detective Morrison simultaneously. "Because despite everything, I still care about him. We have history." "Yes," Emily said quietly. "We all have history." Something passed between them, an acknowledgement of shared pain, maybe, or shared guilt. Christina's expression shifted, became less guarded. "You know, don't you, about what happened 6 months ago? About Marcus still being Marcus?" The detective told me about the assault charges." "Assault charges?" Christina laughed bitterly. "That's such a sanitized way to describe it. Marcus spent 6 months systematically trying to destroy my life. Again. He got me fired from my nursing job. He sent fake reports to the medical board claiming I was stealing drugs. He created fake social media profiles pretending to be me, sending horrible messages to my colleagues. He made it his mission to ensure I could never work as a nurse again." Emily felt sick. It was the same pattern, just escalated. The same cruelty, the same deliberate destruction of someone's life. Marcus hadn't changed at all. He'd just gotten better at hiding it. "Why? Why would he do that to you? You were his girlfriend." "Because I tried to stop him from doing it to someone else. His own daughter. His 14-year-old daughter came to me 6 months ago, crying, telling me that her father was bullying her the same way he bullied kids in high school, making her feel worthless, destroying her confidence. I confronted Marcus, told him he needed help, that he was damaging his own child. And he came after you. He said I was lying, that I was jealous of his new life, that I had always been jealous." Christina's hands clenched into fists. "He said that if I didn't back off, He'd make sure everyone knew what I'd done in high school. The bullying, the cruelty. He'd destroy my reputation, my career, everything. And he tried. "So you ran him off the road?" Emily said quietly. Christina's eyes snapped to hers. "What? No. Is that what the police think?" "Your car is in the parking garage, a dark blue sedan, the same type of vehicle witnesses saw forcing Marcus's car off the road. My car was stolen yesterday. I reported it to the police. Check with them. I was at work when Marcus's accident happened. I have witnesses, security footage, everything. Someone stole my car and used it to try to kill Marcus, but it wasn't me." Emily studied her face, trying to determine if she was lying, but Christina seemed genuinely shocked and frightened. "Who else would have access to your car?" "I don't know. Maybe—" She trailed off, her face paling. "Oh God. Sarah. Sarah who?" "Sarah Webb, Marcus's daughter, the one he was bullying. She knew where I kept my spare car key. I'd given her a ride home a few times when she came to talk to me. She was so angry at her father, so hurt. I told her she needed to talk to someone, to get help. But what if she decided to take matters into her own hands?" Emily's mind raced. A 14-year-old girl, desperate and damaged by her father's cruelty, might do anything to make it stop, might steal a car, might try to kill the person causing her so much pain. "We need to call Detective Morrison now." But before either of them could move, an alarm started blaring from the direction of Marcus's room. Code blue. Cardiac arrest.
Emily burst into room 412 to find Marcus convulsing, his monitor screaming warnings. The cardiac monitor showed ventricular fibrillation. His heart wasn't pumping, just quivering uselessly. Sarah Chen was already there, positioning the crash cart. "What happened?" Emily snapped into professional mode, moving to Marcus's side. "I don't know. I was checking on him and he suddenly went into VFib. No warning. His vitals were stable 5 minutes ago." Emily's hands moved automatically, checking the IV line, the medication pump, looking for any sign of what might have triggered this. Postoperative cardiac arrest could happen for many reasons: blood clot, medication reaction, internal bleeding, but something felt wrong. "Charging to 200 joules, Sarah announced, placing the defibrillator paddles on Marcus's chest. "Clear." Marcus's body jerked with the electrical shock. The monitor showed no change, still VFib. Again, 300 joules. "Clear." Another shock, still no change. Emily started chest compressions, counting automatically. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, the rhythm her body knew by heart. She'd done this hundreds of times. She could save him. She would save him. But as her hands pushed down on Marcus's chest, trying to force his heart to beat, Emily noticed something. The IV bag. It was different from the one she'd hung earlier. Someone had changed it, and the flow rate was wrong, way too fast. "Stop," Emily commanded. "Sarah, clamp off the IV line, now." Sarah didn't question, just moved immediately to clamp off the intravenous line. Emily grabbed the IV bag and held it up to the light. The solution looked normal, but something was off about the label. She grabbed a flashlight from her pocket and examined it more closely. The medication label had been altered. Where it should have said normal saline, someone had replaced it with a bag containing a massive dose of potassium chloride. In the right amount, potassium was essential for heart function. In the wrong amount, it could stop the heart completely. Someone had tried to finish what they started on the highway. Someone had tried to murder Marcus Webb right here in the hospital. "Get Dr. Rodriguez now," Emily ordered. "Tell him possible potassium overdose. We need sodium bicarbonate, calcium chloride, and insulin with dextrose. Move." While Sarah ran for the medications, Emily continued CPR. Her arms burned with effort, but she didn't stop, couldn't stop, because despite everything Marcus had done, despite all the pain he'd caused, Emily refused to let him die. Not like this, not murdered in a hospital bed where he should have been safe. The code team arrived. Dr. Rodriguez took over, barking orders. They administered the reversal agents, trying to counteract the lethal dose of potassium. The minutes stretched like hours. Emily's arms shook with exhaustion, but she kept going, kept pushing, kept fighting. And finally, Marcus's heart rhythm changed.
The chaotic fibrillation became organized beats, weak at first, then stronger. The monitor showed normal sinus rhythm. He was back. Emily stepped away, her scrubs soaked with sweat, her hands trembling again. Sarah caught her before she could fall. "You okay?" Sarah asked. "Someone tried to kill him, right here, in our hospital. They switched his IV bag." "What? Who would—" Detective Morrison pushed through the crowd of medical staff that had gathered. "Everyone step back. This is now a crime scene. Nobody touches anything." Emily watched as the detective examined the IV bag, documented the scene, questioned every staff member who had been on the floor. And as she watched, Emily realized something chilling. Someone walked into this hospital, past security, past nurses and doctors, and had attempted murder. And they might still be here. "Miss Carter," Detective Morrison approached her, "we need to talk. I found Sarah Webb, Marcus's daughter. She's been in the hospital for the past 3 hours. She was never near her father's room." "Then who?" "That's what I need to figure out. But right now, you're the only person who's had continuous access to Marcus Webb since he arrived. You were his admitting nurse. You're assigned to his care team, and you have more reason than anyone to want him dead." Emily felt the world tilt. "You think I did this?" "I think someone did, and until I know who, everyone is a suspect, including you."
Emily sat in the hospital administrator's office, suspended pending investigation. Security footage was being reviewed. Her background was being checked. Everything she'd worked for, the years of education, the therapy, the careful rebuilding of her life, was threatened because of Marcus Webb. Again, she wanted to be angry, wanted to feel the righteous fury of being falsely accused. But mostly she felt exhausted, bone-deep tired of carrying the weight of what Marcus had done to her, tired of having her life defined by his cruelty. There was a knock on the door. Detective Morrison entered, followed by Dr. Rodriguez and the hospital administrator, Patricia Chen. "Miss Carter, you're cleared. Security footage shows you were nowhere near Marcus Webb's room when the IV was switched. In fact, it shows you were in the cafeteria during that time window, having dinner with 3 other nurses who've all corroborated your alibi." Emily felt relief wash over her so intense, she almost cried. Then who? Marcus Webb's brother, Daniel Webb. He entered the hospital using a stolen medical resident ID badge. We have him in custody now. He confessed, said he was tired of cleaning up Marcus's messes, tired of his brother destroying lives and expecting everyone else to deal with it. "I don't understand. Daniel Webb has been paying off Marcus's victims for 20 years. Settlements, legal fees, therapy costs. Every time Marcus destroyed someone, Daniel would show up with a checkbook and try to make it go away. He'd finally had enough. When Marcus's daughter tried to kill herself last month, Daniel snapped." Emily's chest tightened. "Sarah tried to kill herself?" "She's okay now. She's in a psychiatric facility getting help. But that was apparently the last straw for Daniel. He decided the only way to stop Marcus from creating more victims was to eliminate him." The room was quiet for a moment. Then Emily asked the question that had been haunting her since this all began. Why did Marcus do it? Why did he hurt so many people? "I think Marcus Webb can answer that better than I can," Dr. Rodriguez said gently. "He's awake, stable, and he's been asking to speak with you, specifically, Emily. You don't have to go, but I think maybe you should hear what he has to say." 20 minutes later, Emily stood outside room 412 again. But this time was different. This time, Marcus knew who she was. He'd asked for her specifically. She pushed open the door. Marcus looked smaller than ever in the hospital bed, diminished not just by injury, but by something else. Shame, maybe, or the beginning of self-awareness. "Emily Mitchell, I remember you now. I remembered the moment I woke up after the code blue,
saw your face, and suddenly it all came back. What I did to you, what I did to so many others." Emily remained standing near the door, arms crossed protectively. "Why did you ask for me?" "Because you saved my life. Twice. Despite everything you did to me. I need to know why. Why would you save someone who tried to destroy you?" "Because I'm not you," Emily said simply. "Because I chose to be someone who helps people, not someone who hurts them." "I was hurting too," Marcus said, and something in his voice made Emily pause. "That's not an excuse. Nothing excuses what I did. But I need you to understand. My father, he was like me, cruel, vicious. He spent my entire childhood telling me I was worthless, that I'd never amount to anything. The only time he showed me any approval was when I dominated other people, when I made them feel small. So you passed it on. You made others feel the way your father made you feel." "Yes, and I told myself it was normal, that everyone did it, that I was just being tough, teaching people to be strong. I convinced myself that I wasn't like my father because at least I wasn't hitting people. At least I was just using words." He closed his eyes. "But words can destroy just as completely as fists. More completely, maybe, because the bruises they leave don't fade." Emily felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness. She wasn't there yet. But understanding, maybe. A recognition that Marcus Webb was both perpetrator and victim, that hurt people often hurt other people, that the cycle of cruelty could span generations. "Your daughter, Sarah. She's getting help now. She's going to be okay." "Because of Christina Morgan," Marcus said. "Because Christina cared enough to intervene, even though I tried to destroy her for it. Just like I destroyed you for existing, for being an easy target when I needed to feel powerful." "You can't undo what you did." "I know, but I can stop doing it. I can break the cycle with my daughter, if she'll even speak to me after everything. And I can say what I should have said 15 years ago. I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry for what I did to you, for trying to make myself feel better by making you feel worse. You didn't deserve any of it." Emily stood there, hearing the words that she'd fantasized about for years, the apology she'd imagined 1,000 times. But now that it was real, now that Marcus Webb was actually saying he was sorry, Emily realized something. She didn't need his apology to heal. She'd already healed herself. The apology wasn't for her benefit. It was for his. "Thank you for saying that," Emily said finally. "But you should be saying it to your daughter, to Christina, to all the others, because I'm not the only one." "I know, and I will, if they'll listen." He paused. "Can I ask you something? How did you do it? How did you survive what I did and become this? Someone who saves lives, someone good?" Emily thought about the question, about the bridge where she'd almost died, about the years of therapy and slow, painful healing, about choosing every single day to be kind instead of cruel, to help instead of hurt. "I decided that what you did to me would not define who I became. I decided that surviving your cruelty wasn't enough. I had to transform it into something better, something meaningful. You became a nurse. I became someone who saves people, even people who don't deserve it, even people who hurt me." Emily moved toward the door. "Goodbye, Marcus. I hope you find a way to become someone different too." As she left the room for what she knew would be the last time, Emily felt 15 years of weight lifting from her shoulders.
3 weeks later, Emily stood in a therapy office for the first time in 5 years. She hadn't needed therapy in a while, or so she told herself. But after everything that had happened with Marcus, her therapist, Dr. Patricia Williams, had called her. Sometimes healing isn't linear, Dr. Williams had said. Sometimes old wounds open up again, and we need to process them at a new level. I saved his life, Emily told Dr. Williams. I saved the man who almost destroyed me, and I don't know what I'm supposed to feel about that. What do you feel? Dr. Williams asked gently. Proud and confused and angry and free somehow. Emily struggled to find the words. For 15 years, Marcus Webb has lived in my head. Every time I doubted myself, every time I felt worthless, it was his voice I heard, his judgments, his cruelty. But when I saved his life, when I chose to help him despite everything, it was like I took back all the power he'd stolen from me. That's a profound realization. But I also feel guilty, Emily admitted, because there was a moment, just a moment, where I wanted him to die, where I thought about how easy it would be to just not try quite as hard. And that scared me, because I don't want to be the kind of person who could let someone die. Emily, having that thought doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human. The fact that you chose to save him anyway, that's what matters. That's who you really are. Emily thought about Christina Morgan, who'd come to the hospital after Marcus stabilized to check on him and, surprisingly, to check on Emily. They'd had coffee in the hospital cafeteria, two women connected by shared trauma. I spent years hating him, years plotting revenge in my head, ways to make him hurt the way he hurt me. But when I heard someone had actually tried to kill him, when I thought he might die, I realized I didn't want that. I wanted him to live and to understand what he'd done, to change, because his death wouldn't heal what he broke in me. Only I could heal that. Those words had struck Emily deeply, because Christina was right. Marcus's death wouldn't heal Emily's wounds. His apology, as meaningful as it was, hadn't healed them either. Only Emily could do that work. And she'd been doing it, slowly, for 15 years. I heard that Marcus Webb checked himself into a psychiatric facility, voluntary commitment for intensive therapy. His daughter made it a condition of speaking to him again, Emily explained. Apparently, Sarah told him that if he wanted any relationship with her, he needed to understand why he hurt people and learn to stop. His brother Daniel made it part of his plea deal. Marcus had to get treatment or he wouldn't take a lesser sentence. How do you feel about that? I feel like maybe there's hope, Emily said. Not for Marcus and me. I'll never have a relationship with him and I don't want one. But hope that people can change, that the cycle of abuse can be broken, that maybe Sarah won't grow up to hurt others the way her father hurt people. Dr. Williams smiled. That's a very mature perspective, Emily. You've come so far from the 15-year-old girl who felt so hopeless. Emily thought about that girl, the one who'd stood on the bridge, ready to jump, the one who'd believed Marcus Webb's lies about her worth. She felt a surge of compassion for that younger version of herself, and she felt proud of the woman she'd become. I want to do something, Emily said suddenly. I want to start a program at the hospital for young people who've experienced bullying. A support group, maybe, or a mentorship program. Something that gives them what I needed. Someone to tell them that what's happening isn't their fault, that they have value, that they can survive this. That's a beautiful idea. I can't change what happened to me, but maybe I can use it to help someone else. Maybe that's how I turn something awful into something meaningful. Dr. Williams nodded. I think you've already been doing that, Emily. Every time you put on your nurse's uniform, every time you save a life, every time you choose compassion over cruelty, you've been turning your pain into purpose all along. After the session, Emily walked through the hospital corridors with a lighter step. She passed room 412.
now occupied by a different patient. Marcus had been discharged a week ago, transferred to the psychiatric facility. She'd heard through hospital gossip that Christina Morgan had visited him there, that they were both in therapy, both trying to understand and break the cycles that had damaged them. Emily hoped it worked, not for Marcus's sake particularly, but for the sake of everyone who might cross his path in the future, for his daughter Sarah, who deserved a father who didn't hurt her, for all the potential future victims who might be spared if Marcus Webb truly changed. But Emily's healing wasn't dependent on Marcus's transformation. She'd learned that crucial lesson. She could move forward regardless of whether he ever truly understood what he'd done. Her worth wasn't determined by his apology. Her strength wasn't measured by his weakness. She was enough. She always had been. She just hadn't known it at 15. Sarah Chen found her at the nurse's station. "Hey, I heard about your program idea. The hospital board is really interested. They want you to present a formal proposal next month." "Really? Really?" "And Emily," Sarah smiled, "I think it's amazing. You're going to help so many people." Emily smiled back, because that's what she did. That's who she chose to be. Not a victim, not someone defined by what was done to her, but someone who took the worst experience of her life and transformed it into a force for good. The trembling hands that almost let Marcus Webb die had instead saved him. And in saving him, Emily had saved herself, not from death, but from being trapped forever in the pain of the past. She was finally, truly free.
6 months after the night Emily Carter's hands trembled over Marcus Webb's hospital bed, she stood in front of a room of teenagers at Lincoln High School, the same school where she'd been tormented 15 years ago, the same hallways where Marcus had made her feel worthless. But everything was different now. "My name is Emily Carter," she began. "And when I was your age, I stood on a bridge ready to jump because someone convinced me my life had no value." The room was completely silent. 30 teenagers, some of them wearing the same defensive expressions Emily remembered wearing at their age, some of them with eyes that held too much pain for people so young. "I'm here to tell you that the person who hurt me was wrong, and whoever is hurting you right now, they're wrong too. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's cruelty. Your value doesn't decrease because someone decided to target you." Emily talked for 45 minutes, sharing her story. Not all of it. Some wounds were still too private to share with strangers, but enough. Enough that several students were crying. Enough that afterward, 3 different teenagers came up to her privately and asked for help. This was the 5th school Emily had visited as part of her new program, Healing Voices. Started with hospital funding and support from a local nonprofit, the program offered counseling, support groups, and advocacy for young people experiencing bullying. Emily ran it alongside her nursing duties, pouring her energy and experience into creating what she desperately needed at 15. Marcus Webb's daughter, Sarah, was part of the program, not as someone Emily worked with directly, that would have been too complicated, but as a beneficiary of the services. Sarah was healing, slowly, learning that her father's actions weren't her fault, learning that she could break the cycle. Marcus himself sent Emily a letter every month. She never responded. She'd read the first few, apologies, updates on his therapy, expressions of gratitude for saving his life, but eventually she'd asked them to stop. Not because she was angry, but because she didn't need the connection. His healing journey was his own, hers was separate. Christina Morgan had become an unexpected ally. She'd started her own support group for adult survivors of bullying, focusing on people whose experiences had impacted their professional lives. She and Emily occasionally collaborated, creating a network of support that spanned age groups and experiences. "You helped me realize something important," Christina had told Emily during one of their planning meetings. "Healing isn't about the person who hurt us. It's about us choosing who we become despite what they did."
Emily had taken those words to heart, and now, standing in a hospital conference room where the board had just approved expanding Healing Voices to 3 more school districts, Emily felt the full weight of her transformation. She'd turned her worst experience into something that would help hundreds, maybe thousands of young people. She'd taken the pain Marcus Webb had inflicted and alchemized it into hope for others. Her hands no longer trembled when she thought about him. She slept through the nights. She looked in mirrors and saw someone strong, someone who survived, someone who chose compassion when cruelty would have been easier. On the anniversary of the night she'd saved Marcus's life, Emily visited the bridge where she'd almost ended her own. She stood at the railing, looking down at the water below, thinking about the 15-year-old girl who'd stood in this exact spot. "We made it," she whispered to that younger version of herself. "We survived. We became someone amazing. And we're helping make sure other kids don't feel as alone as we did." The wind picked up, carrying her words away. Emily smiled. She didn't believe in signs or cosmic justice or karma, but she believed in choice, in the power of deciding every single day who you wanted to be. Marcus Webb tried to define her as a victim. She redefined herself as a survivor, and then she'd gone further. She'd become a helper, a healer, someone who used her pain to ease the pain of others. That was her victory. Not that Marcus had apologized, not that he'd been punished, but that she'd taken what he'd tried to use to destroy her and had built something beautiful from the rubble. And now, to you who's listening to this story, maybe you're someone who's experienced bullying. Maybe you're someone who's carrying pain from your past. Maybe you're someone who's struggling to forgive yourself for the person you used to be. Here's what Emily Carter wants you to know. Your story isn't over. The person who hurt you doesn't get to write your ending. You do. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's cruelty. Whatever they said about you, whatever they did to you, that reflects their character, not yours. Healing is possible. It's not easy. It's not quick, but it's absolutely possible. Emily stood on a bridge at 15 ready to end her life. At 40, she runs a program that saves lives. That transformation took years of therapy, work, and choice, but it happened. You can transform pain into purpose. The worst things that happen to us don't have to define us. They can refine us. They can become the foundation for helping others who are going through similar struggles. And if you're someone who's hurt others, if you recognize yourself in Marcus Webb's story, it's not too late to change. It's not too late to break the cycle, to understand why you hurt people, to become someone different. The first step is acknowledging the harm you've caused. The second is getting help. The third is making amends where possible and committing to being better going forward. Every day is a chance to choose who you become. Emily Carter chose to save the man who tried to destroy her, and in saving him, she saved herself. What will you choose? If you or someone you know is experiencing bullying or having thoughts of self-harm, please reach out for help. You matter, your story matters, and there are people who care. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes we all need a reminder that healing is possible, that we're stronger than we think, and that choosing kindness, especially when it's hardest, is the ultimate victory. Thank you for listening to Emily's story. May it inspire you to write your own chapter of healing, hope, and transformation.